Good evening. Welcome to this regularly scheduled Dunwoody City Council meeting. Can someone in IT tell me? I see John. Is he looped in so that he can participate?
I am.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Hennigan is joining us remotely. Councilman Lautenbacher is not available this evening. With that, Councilman Lambert, can you lead us in the invocation and the pledge, please?
At this meeting, help us to make decisions which keep us faithful to our mission and reflect our values. Give us strength to hold to our purpose, wisdom to guide us, and a keen perception to lead us. And above all, keep us charitable as we deliberate. Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Time for public comments. You get 3 minutes per speaker. Ali, I think I saw you. Is he here? Yeah, so sorry. You always sit right there. No, you're fine. You always sit where I can't see you through the post.
By design.
Right. You'll have 3 minutes. Introduce yourself. And excuse me, go ahead.
City Council, thank you for having me today. My name is Ali Mahmoud. I'm talking to you today in support of, I believe you are voting on something for a pay increase for the city of Dunwoody. That stated, I wanted to talk to you in support of this. If we all stop and pause, take a step back and look at where Dunwoody was 1 year ago to today, I think we can all agree we're definitely in we're in a better situation. We were in a great situation last year and we're just keeps getting better. Largely in part due to the work here, to the part of the city manager, and then most importantly also the people in this building supporting all those different activities and all those different type of all those initiatives. That stated as well, with the upcoming high street, with the influx of new apartments, the new residents, the new activities, the new businesses, that's going to most likely add a lot of stress and more workload to city employees for the following year. That stated, I think it would be fair to kind of compensate them up front. I do agree with the support of increasing the salary and the compensation. I do agree with the support of resetting some of these ranges. That stated, honestly, I will just keep it as simple as that. Thank you.
Thank you. Robert Diamante, when you get, we have a problem with the timer. 1 second, sir, we'll give you 1 second. You'll let me know when it's ready. Okay. 1 second until once we get the timer ready.
All right.
Thank you. Is it, okay, approach the microphone, introduce yourself, and you'll have 3 minutes, sir.
Okay. Good evening, City Council. My name is Robert Diamante. On Saturday morning, March 23rd, 2024, I was standing in front of the Barnes & Noble bookstore here in Dunwoody. And I was talking on my phone with a person who resides in Phoenix, Arizona, trying to collect money on a debt from a former friend of mine who betrayed my trust a year and a half ago when he asked me to loan him money. That's none of Dunwoody's concern. However, the Dunwoody Police Department made it their concern. They basically came on scene, and there was 3 officers: Officer Eddie Estes, Officer Brandon Everett, and Officer Prince Green. And they all said, "Who are you talking to on the phone? And what are you talking about?" And I says, "That's just none of your concern. I don't have to answer your questions. I don't have to tell you who I'm talking to and what I'm talking about." And they continued to press, and they continued to bug me. And finally, I had it, and I says, "It's none of your effing business." At that point, Officer Eddie Estes told me to put my hands behind my back. He affixed handcuffs to my wrists. He walked me over to the police car, and he says, "Where you're going, if you curse out anyone like that over there, they're going to show you what time it is." And so now I'm fearing for my physical safety because I have a police officer telling me this. And I says, I'm not going to jail. He says, yes, you are. And I says, no, I'm not. And he throws me on the back seat of a car and slams the door on my feet. Then several minutes later, Sergeant Joshua Sanders arrives on scene, and he talks to them, and then he rolls down the window and he says, what happened? And I told him what happened. And I nodded at Officer Eddie Estes, and I said that he's a mother effer. Now, they may not like that, but that's freedom of speech. That's protected freedom of speech according to several court cases, case law, precedent, not just state, but federal as well. And they literally booked me into the DeKalb County Jail. And I asked numerous times when I was there, what's the bail amount? And I was ignored. I did 4 days and 3 nights because I swore at a police officer. I have emailed your entire city council. I've emailed the mayor, the city manager, the police chief, and I've been ignored by everybody. I did have one sit-down conversation with Assistant Manager Jay Vanicki, and I did have one phone call with Major William Furman. Major William Furman did affirm that he was going to take this as an official complaint. I'm going to speak another 3 minutes at the end of this meeting, and it's going to be about where we go forward from here.
Thank you. Those are all the cards I have. There'll be another public comment section at the end, and the cards are back there. You're going to read the proclamation.
Mayor, the next agenda item is a proclamation.
We want Chief to come up. Yeah. Sorry, Chief, do you want to join us up here? You're going to read.
Okay.
Please.
A proclamation. Whereas Chief Billy Grogan began his law enforcement career in 1981, serving for the Marietta Police Department. He was promoted through the ranks and took on a variety of challenging yet rewarding positions. And whereas while serving with the Marietta Police Department, he co-developed the award-winning Marietta Strategically Targeting Areas with Resources, MSTAR, community policing program. He retired as deputy chief in 2008 after 27 years of service. And whereas he has served with honor and distinction as the chief of police of the Dunwoody Police Department since December 17th, 2008. And whereas in April 2009, the Dunwoody Police Department began with 40 officers and 8 civilians, and under the direction of Chief Billy Grogan, the department is now composed of 64 officers and 15 civilians. And whereas under the direction of Chief Billy Grogan, the Dunwoody Police Department has earned Georgia State certification. And whereas he has earned numerous distinguished titles, including Special Olympics Georgia Torch Run Director, President of the DeKalb County Chiefs Association, and President of the Georgia Association of Chiefs of Police. And whereas he has extensive training and experience, having graduated from the FBI National Academy, the FBI Law Enforcement Executive Seminar, the Georgia International Law Enforcement Exchange Program, GILI, Georgia Command College, and the Senior Management Institute of Police for Law Enforcement Executives. And whereas he holds a Bachelor of Science degree in Political Science and a Master's degree in Public Administration. And whereas he has served as a board member for GACP, GILI, the IACP Human and Civil Rights Committee, and Atlanta's FBI Joint Terrorism Task Force. And whereas he has shown his commitment towards serving the community by hosting programs such as the department's Christmas for Kids program, and by joining forces each year with various nonprofits such as Special Olympics Georgia and Convoy of Care on a variety of charitable projects. And whereas he has been awarded several notable awards, such as the Dunwoody Homeowners Association Citizen of the Year and the Georgia Association of Chiefs of Police Outstanding Chief of the Year for 2023-2024. And whereas his inspiring commitment towards the welfare of others is an outstanding example of the positive effect law enforcement professionals have on the lives and well-being of others. And whereas it is abundantly fitting and proper that gratitude be expressed for the unique and often unheralded contributions made by Police Chief Billy Grogan during his 43 years serving in law enforcement as he prepares to retire on June 1st, 2024 as Chief Emeritus. And now therefore I, Lynn P. Deutsch, Mayor of Dunwoody, do hereby proclaim April 8th, 2024 as Chief Billy Grogan Day in honor of his lifetime commitment and dedication towards the welfare of the citizens of the state and his belief in and unwavering support of the men and women of the Dunwoody Police Department.
Chief, I want to thank you for your service to this community, both as police chief and many years ago as interim city manager, which from my perspective was probably the harder job. But you have served this community with unwavering dedication. There are not very many people around today that can say they started a police department. So you have that unique feather in your cap. But you didn't just start a police department, you started a department that serves our community on a daily basis, which has all kinds of challenges and is different than many other places because of some of our unique characteristics. But we've built a department that works hard to serve the residents, the visitors, and the businesses of Dunwoody. And your commitment to us all shows every day in what happens, what happens with public safety in Dunwoody, and your willingness to take on extra projects that wouldn't necessarily fall within a police chief scope has been greatly appreciated as well. And with that, and so we appreciate you. And with that, we'd love to hear from you.
Sure. Mayor and council, I certainly appreciate this tonight. It's been a great honor for me to be able to work here for 15 years. When I started back in 2008, I never dreamed, I'd be here 15 years later. But I'm happy that I am and excited to be retiring from Dunwoody and not going anywhere else. I'm looking forward to what's the next chapter of my life. But I will say that, the chief gets a lot of attention and accolades because the chief is the leader of the department, but this department would not be where it is today without the men and women of our department who work really hard every day to make it the best department possible. That started from the very beginning and continues today. They have such dedication and compassion for the people they interact with every day. That's one of the things I'm most proud of, is how they go about their job and help people sometimes out of their own pocket when they're not required to do so. It's because they have that compassion in their heart. And we would not be where we are today without the support of the mayor, and you, the council, and the mayors and the council before that served since the founding of the department. You've provided us the tools, the support that we need to do our jobs. And not a lot of police departments can say that about their council, but I can about this one. A lot of them, unfortunately, are too busy fighting amongst themselves, and that's not the case here in Dunwoody, and I'm very thankful for that. When I look to hire new people coming to our department, I tell them there's 3 great reasons why they should come to Dunwoody, the Dunwoody Police Department. The first is we have such a great community, a very supportive community. And I talk about the signs that were put out when we first started. If y'all remember, bad guys beware, the street signs and the stickers on the rear of the vehicles. And, I talk about that. The second thing is I talk about a supportive mayor and council, where you give us the resources we need to get the job done. We're probably one of the fewest cities around that's received a raise every single year for the last 15 years. There's probably not many communities that can say that. So that tells me and tells them that you invest in the most important asset we have, which is our people. And then the third thing is, it's the inside of our department and how we treat each other. We treat each other with respect and how we expect our officers to treat the public. And we do that inside our department as well. So I want to thank all of you again for all of your support. City Manager Eric Linton's been a great partner and worked with us to help us with the things that we need. And I know he's advocated for those things with you. And I appreciate that very much. And again, the success of our department is because of all the people that work there that do such a great job. And I don't want to forget this. You know, the Dunwoody Police Department is part of the city, and all the other departments are great partners with us as well. We work great with, Public Works and Parks and Rec and IT, all the other departments. They're great to work with, and we appreciate their support as well. So thank y'all very much.
Thank you. Excuse me. Sorry. Allergies are destroying me. Thank you, Chief, and thank you for your service and congratulations on your retirement. Next up is City Manager's monthly report.
Yes, Mayor, thank you. This is the report ending April 5th, 2024. In the Parks Department, we have our Lemonade Days starting on April 17th through the 21st. The Parks Director is getting everything ready in terms of that, along with the effort with the police and also our private individuals to assist with that huge event we have every year. Also, the Food Truck Thursday season opener is May 16th. We have our Memorial Day ceremony on the 27th of May and the Groovin' on the Green series opener on June the 8th. Our shade structures are in the manufacturing process right now at Two Bridges Park. And those are scheduled to be an inspection in later in April, and we'll have those up in time for the season. Also, the Waterford Park Playground, we did have requests for proposals were opened on March the 21st, and they're due back on the 23rd of April with scores and have a recommendation to the council in May. Stage door theater ballet room remodel is now complete. The staff has also solicited quotes to install the sprung floors to increase the programming offered. And that was something that the staff, along with myself, went over and took a look at the theater after a request and see where we can put some additional dollars in that to get more programming space now that they have under some new leadership at that facility. The redesign of the Brook Run Veterans Memorial is also underway. Staff met with some designers out there this morning. I was there with that as well to kind of come up, bring y'all a new plan, since the original plan was outside the budget and outside of the scope. So I think what y'all are going to see will be very exciting to have that reconstructed as the Vietnam Veteran Memorial is underway as well. The Georgetown Gateway, the contractor has reached an important milestone in March with the completion of all stormwater pipelines. Other activities include the installation of 340 feet of curb, 90 feet of sidewalk, and 7 trees have been put in. The April remaining curb and sidewalk will be in April later this month will be completed, weather permitting. The Ashford Dunwoody Phase 1 path, the contractor has completed all the sidewalk for the project. Georgia Power has begun installation of streetlights and the wiring, and once that's complete, we'll begin the building cycle of that, the contractor will begin building the cycle track along there. There is a picture showing how that trail goes along. We wanted to take extra caution in maintaining as many trees as we could along Ashford Dunwoody and the frontage of the mall. The Ashford Dunwoody Phase 2 path, we're finalizing the right-of-way plans for that to continue it on up towards Mount Vernon. Edson Hall and Cherry Hill Path, stormwater analysis is in progress over there. And also the stormwater pipelining is in progress on the Buckline Crossing and Fontainebleau Court areas. That's about 270 feet of pipeline in Arden Woods and 430 feet on Dunwoody Club Forest. So that process is starting up again for the season. And we have changed how we notify the public of the stormwater pipe relinings, very similar to how we do on a street resurfacing, so the neighbors know what's going on. We also were able to change the process that we use on that to a material that's not as offensive to the public in terms of the odor and the some of the noise. So we did change that into a little bit different product. That has a different cooling process. The Community Development Department has completed its proposal evaluations and interviews to select the consultant for the 20-year comprehensive plan and the creation of the Unified Development Ordinance. The work is to start in May and last approximately 2 years. And here again, this is a very public process that will be going down for the comprehensive plan, but also the UDC to have a lot of public input. I know Richard McLeod and his team are putting a lot of effort in that, along with the design team that is going to write those documents. Moving on into communications, the spring issue of the Dunwoody Digest hit the mailboxes in late March. There's a link to that within your piece. Also, the Inside Dunwoody, which is my focus. And this time I did focus on Chief Grogan's retirement and Dunwoody Police Department's 15-year anniversary. There are links within the report for those publications. The police department, the Dunwoody Police Department Teen Police Academy will be held the week of July 8th through the 12th for teens age 14 through 19. We're also holding a blood drive tomorrow from noon to 5. The department has 100 donors, Life Southwell Awards, $700 to Special Olympics Georgia as part of this program. Also, the STEP unit conducted a distracted driving detail in Ashford Dunwoody at Perimeter Center West. 20 citations were issued, including 10 for hands-free violation, and 1 arrest was made. One thing I want to point out within the activity workload section are the entering autos. Just once again, advise people to please keep your cars locked. A lot of times the break-ins are associated with unlocked vehicles. Also want to point out again, one of the a couple of different items we have, which are the license plate readers and the Raven gunshot detection. So take a look at those within your report when you have time. And there's a couple other things in there that are highlighted for y'all to take a look at when you have a moment. There is another one I want to point out, which is the some street racing, because I know that's been an issue in Dunwoody from time to time. We did respond to a street racers on Ashford Dunwoody Road in the parking lot of Publix and QT. 3 officers found 100 to 200 vehicles in the parking lot, and the drivers were asked to leave, and they relocated to the Taco Mac and the Hobnob. Again, they were asked to leave that location of the city. And it's just, that's something we do get several complaints on, when they're out and create an unsafe environment. We also had a shots fired call where somebody shot a handgun into the air, and which, I will remind the public that's very dangerous. When you do that, of course, the bullet will come back down on somebody at a higher rate of speed. And so be very careful with that. But it's something that we're also going to add a shot detector within the perimeter area as well, part of the Raven Alert system. The Finance Department, Malden and Jenkins, conducted the 2023 year-end audit. They conducted that from March 11th through March 22nd. That's been completed. There's a copy of the financial report online, and of course within the document here. From the city clerk's office, and I don't report a lot from the city clerk's office because the stuff's pretty is good reading there for y'all normally. But I did want to point out the strategic planning retreat that the city did hold, and the amount of effort that all the department heads, but also the clerk, put into that to have a very successful retreat for the council this year. Human resources, this is something we're doing for the employees in March. Human Resources and the Wellness Committee sponsored an employee educational presentation on financial wellness and kicked off the Feel Good Fridays, which is a wellness event centered on exercise, healthy eating, and socialization. Also, we did fill the property and evidence technician position within the police department. But Mayor, that concludes my report. I'm glad to answer any questions on the report.
Anybody have questions? John, do you have any questions?
Thank you, Len, for reaching out. Sorry I'm unable to make the meeting tonight due to business reasons. Eric, I do have a couple of questions regarding the report. You mentioned the stormwater analysis for Cherry Hill and Eitzen. I know that there have been stormwater issues on Cherry Hill for quite a while. And does this analysis include the problems that are already existing, or will the analysis only deal with the new side path?
Actually, and Michael Smith has come up to the podium. He's gonna answer that question.
Yes, we are looking at partially at some of the issues out there. Cherry Hill is kind of a U-shaped street. And I think some of the problems are on the eastern part of the U, if you will, and the path is on the western part. So it's not directly addressing those, but we are looking at diverting some of the water coming down the western leg and capturing it with our project so that it doesn't go down to the eastern side.
All right, Michael, thank you. There's no sewers or there's no water collection on Cherry Hill whatsoever, correct? So therefore, are we thinking of adding any for this project?
There's not any on the west side. The eastern cul-de-sac, I think, does have one storm drain.
Okay.
But we're looking on the western side, there aren't any, and we're looking at, collecting the water there and taking it down along our path.
All right, so your analysis is taking a look at it. Thank you.
Yes.
And Eric, the only other thing I had was regarding the 200 vehicles and the street racing. 200 vehicles in Dunwoody. Again, I'm not sure what violations or what crimes or, were actually done, but in the sense of the police, we're putting lots of money into the real-time crime analysis and LPRs. Is there anything that the police department can do in order to make sure that they don't come back?
And Chief Grogan has stepped to the podium.
Thank you.
John, they didn't commit any violations. They were just hanging out in the parking lot on this particular occasion in both areas and were asked to leave, and they did that. As long as they're not, committing violations, there's nothing we can really do particularly about it. But we can certainly use that potentially to monitor situations where large crowds gather.
Is this something that you would see the real crime analysis tool being used for possibly? I mean, would there be somebody watching for stuff like that? Would that mean, it seems really unusual, 200 people and 200 vehicles in one parking lot?
It would depend on where cameras are positioned in the city. And, we're in the process of locating some through the PCID funding. And so I don't know really where they're located at yet, but potentially, yes, that would be accurate.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Nothing
Chief,
else.
can I ask you a follow-up? Sorry. So there was legislation that passed this year that will strengthen the penalties, I guess, and maybe add a level of crime related to street racing.
Yes,
The governor has to sign it,
right.
but it would penalize participants and maybe attendees. Is that correct?
Yes, I haven't read it
Right,
totally yet,
right.
so I'm waiting to do that to see if the governor is going to sign it or not. But I think what it does, it strengthens penalties for organizers of it, and a lot of it's organized on social media.
Right.
And then also potentially for attendees as well as participants. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Stacy has a question for you as well.
Okay.
This has nothing to do with street racing. Actually, in regards to the blood drive that's tomorrow, there's only one slot left. It's at 3:15. Does that mean that there's 99 people signed up and we just need one more?
I have no idea. Officer
Okay.
Hernandez is the
one doing that. Okay. So all you out there, there's one slot at 3:15. That's all that's available. Just saying.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. John, you were done, I think. Tom, did you have something? Okay.
Thank you. So quick question. I saw in there the gateway signage, the drawings. Does that mean that we're ready to go into fabrication for those? And just out of curiosity, do we have an ETA when those might actually start going to construction and being placed?
We're waiting on a schedule for the contractor. The delay has been, they've had a hard time getting their granite source lined up, but we finally have that sorted out. And so we're waiting. They submitted their, final shop drawings. Once those are approved, we're waiting for schedule, and then they should start building. We want them to build one first, and then go from there. So I can probably have a schedule for you this week sometime.
Okay. Yeah, just more of a curiosity, just would love to see those going up soon. Thank you. I do have one other, it's not really a question, but comment. I saw in there the Waterford Park that we're soliciting for or RFPs for the resurfacing of the tennis courts. I just want to suggest, I don't know if we've done this, but the USTA offers grants for resurfacing courts. There's money available and parks are eligible. I don't know if the city of Dunwoody is, but if we could look into that, they'll cover up to 50% of the cost. So just something worth pursuing if we're eligible for that. So
Sure, we'll certainly look into that.
yep. And while I'm talking about Waterford, and it's more of just a comment, I actually had a community meeting there yesterday, and was really excited that the park was packed. I mean, there was a couple of young families that brought some coolers and some blankets, and they were there with their children on the grass having a picnic. And they were Dunwoody families, not from the immediate neighborhood. They actually drove there from a nearby neighborhood, but they were Dunwoody families. Told them that we had the RFP out for the playground. They were very excited to hear that. When I arrived at the park, both tennis courts were being used with tennis matches going on. By the time I left, the tennis players had left, but pickleballers were there playing pickleball. So I was really excited to see how busy the park was. And like I said, when I spoke to some people and told them that the playground is in the works, they were very excited. So just thought I'd share that.
Stacy.
This is a question for Michael Smith again, in regards to the Vermac path. It said that we have bids out for summer construction. Is that this summer? And
Yes.
does the easement with the school district, like, it was all encompassing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we took care of that last year, and so we're just gonna finish the second phase this summer.
With the summer. Okay, great. Thank you.
Joe.
Michael. Yeah, explain a little bit more, a little more detail about the Mount Vernon Tilly Mill intersection. I see that bullet about coordinating utility relocation. Just what are we looking at really in general, the right of way and whatever?
Yes, we are still negotiating right away. We have some parcels under contract. We're still working on some others. I think there's maybe 3 or 4 left. Three. And then we're waiting on utility relocation schedules from the utilities. So,
Right.
but I
Right.
mean, the real, I guess the critical path at this point is the right of way.
Yeah. Well, I hope that we can, again, it's great, but thanks for Michael. And I just want to give a shout out again. I appreciate the content of this report. I wish I should just print it off and have it in my pocket when citizens at large just come up to me and say, what is the city doing? Because they might know one thing, and just to give them this list of everything. And I'm really, really proud. You know, I used to consider myself an outsider. I'm sitting up here now. But if you look in the public works major projects, look at all these great transformational things that we're doing. Yes, we're doing paving, but we're doing a lot more than paving too. And these are generational lifestyle improvements for the quality of life and the safety of our citizens, visitors, and guests, and people that live, work, and play here. So I'm really excited about what we are here and where we've come. And yeah, I just wanted to state that. Thank you.
Michael Smith. Sorry, we should have just had you stay up here. So I see the good news about the Georgetown Gateway project. It looks like a lot of work was done over spring break.
That was the plan, yeah.
And that was good. It's really good. Do we have an updated estimate? Are we still thinking middle of summer?
Yeah, I think the sidewalks and path and the landscaping will be done in the next 4 to 6 weeks. And then we'll all that's left at that point is the final paving, and we're going to do that overnight, probably after school's out. I mean, because once the other stuff's done, the final paving won't take very long, and the project will mainly look complete even before the paving's done.
All right, thank you. Go ahead, Steve.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to move agenda item number 14 from discussion to a business item.
Second.
What number were you giving?
Agenda item number 14, the request for pre-construction funding for real-time traffic center.
So it'll become 12, the new 12, I guess. Under business items.
Under
Okay.
business items.
Any questions or discussion? Okay, seeing none, I call the question on this amendment, this motion to the amendment to the agenda. All in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you, John. Any opposed? Hearing none. The motion carries. Sharon, you got that agenda change? Tom? Okay, next up, Sharon.
Mayor, moving to the public hearings. We have an ordinance to amend the city of Dunwoody zoning classification and map for zoning conditions of lot parcel number 18-329-04011 in consideration of zoning case RZ 15072 for 245 Perimeter Center Parkway from planned development conditional PDC district to planned development conditional PDC zoning district.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Council. I'll present to you tonight the rezoning application for the third and final phase of Park Center of the Park Center complex. Because PD districts are unique, they're a very unique zoning districts. I want to spend a bit of time on explaining this first and providing a little bit of background. Second, I want to summarize the history of Park Center as it was, the zoning history and the development history. Third, I'll present to you briefly what is proposed before you tonight. Just very briefly, because the applicant has their collective team here and they'll give a deeper overview over what that development entails. And fourth, I will present the staff recommendation and the proposed conditions that we have before you. So the PD district, it's the planned development zoning districts. They're a very unique districts. They're intended to allow planning and development of specific parcels as a unified development, and they're outside of the typical zoning district standards. So they do not have a use table associated with them. They do not have dimensional standards associated with them. All of that gets approved as part of a overall development plan. So they're pretty much writing their own zoning district, or you all are writing their zoning district. It's sort of a better way to describe it. So this overall development plan includes basic regulations like the allowed uses, the proportion, the size of the different uses. It includes design standards. It includes parking standards, and it includes other elements that are necessary to ensure a quality development. And the complete overall development plan as a document is included as part of the your package. And I'll sort of highlight small increments of it. So Park Center currently consists of 3 existing buildings. They're on both sides of Perimeter Center Parkway. From a zoning standpoint, phase 1 that was zoned in 2013. It's on the eastern side of Perimeter Center Parkway. Is zoned O&I, so it has one of the typical zoning districts that we have adopted. Then you have phase 2 consisting of buildings 3 and 4. Those are on the western side of Perimeter Center Parkway, highlighted on the screen in green. They're zoned as a planned development, and they include the area that's before you all tonight. So that was zoned in 2015 as part of the overall development. At the time, so only the green components, so building 2 and 3 plus the proposed development site, have a combined entitlement of 1.8 million square feet of office, 90,000 square feet of retail and restaurant space, 7,000 structured parking spaces, and it's entitled for a maximum height of 35 stories above the plaza level. So some of this is, of course, built. That's the existing buildings, while some of it is still an open entitlement. This is the approved site plan. On the sort of northwestern side, so top left of the screen, it's the existing buildings 2 and 3 that are constructed. Towards the right hand side, you see the pedestrian bridge over Perimeter Center Parkway connecting to building 1. And then in blue outlined down there, that's the remaining area that's before you all tonight. In 2015, that was proposed as an office building as well. So very similar design than the existing office buildings. And because of the changes to the office market, it's proposed to you all with a different development program tonight. So this is sort of a nice view of the existing site, sort of a bird's eye view from the direction of the perimeter, pretty much overlooking the development. And on that image, on the bottom left side of the screen, you can really see the opening. You know, that's the remaining site that is proposed to be filled. You can also see here the existing improvements that the developer has already made. That plaza level, sort of that's in front of the buildings. There that includes a driveway, open space, includes amenity space, and acts sort of as a second front to the buildings. Overall, of the entitlements that I spoke about before, we have remaining at this point 729,000 square feet of office space, 33,500 square feet of retail and restaurant space, and 2,800 parking spaces approximately. And the developer has, at the time the building 2 and 3 were constructed, the developer has also constructed the entire infrastructure for the site, which includes stormwater, it includes street infrastructure. At the time, this was a development of regional impact. So due to its size and development program, it was reviewed by the Atlanta Regional Commission and Greta. And the applicant has already implemented the improvements. There were new turn lanes installed. There were sidewalks installed. And then at the bottom of the screen, you have this east-west street that connects to Fulton County. On the western side, the Springwood connector. The part that's in Dunwoody was also built by the applicant. And we've highlighted here the pedestrian and bike infrastructure that was built. You have on the northern side along Hammond, you have a protected bike lane, a one-way bike lane with a separate sidewalk. And of course, you have the walkway close to the building that's adjacent to the retail spaces as well. You have on the western side, sort of behind the development, you have sort of a beautiful lush environment with a multi-use trail in there. You have on the eastern side, you have a side path along Perimeter Center Parkway that's 10 feet wide. And at the bottom, so on the Springwood connector, at the bottom of the screen, you have a separate sidewalk and a separate bike lane. Also, just because it's unique, like the pedestrian bridge over Perimeter Center Parkway that connects directly through the Park Center Building 1 to the Dunwoody Motor Station. And this image, again, a bird's eye view, this time, this is over from the Sandy Springs side. Looking east, it shows, I think, very nicely the context of the development, because it truly is, I mean, it is a high density development, but it is at the center of an area of substantial density that we have as part of, for instance, the Edge City 2.0 plan, also dedicated as the most suitable area for high density development in Perimeter Center. Here on the left-hand side of the screen, you'll have, so across Hammond, You have the High Street development, where phase one is in the process of opening up right now. Phase two is anticipated. You also have the Dunwoody Motor Station that is literally right there across the street. The Motor is currently studying a transit-oriented development along that station as well. Towards the top of the screen, you have Campus 244. That's like full under construction right now with the anticipated opening of the first phase towards the middle to and the end of the year. And then on the very right-hand side, across the perimeter, you have Perimeter Summit and Brookhaven, where 2 apartment buildings are under construction right now, with the retail component as well. So it truly is sort of like a center of this center that we have here of density. And before I've shown sort of the footprint of the initially proposed building, what's before you all tonight is a different concept. You'll see it here. You'll see at the very bottom of the development is sort of retail and restaurant space. You have a parking podium above ground, similar to the existing development. And then you have proposed a 2-story development above that will combine the different use categories that I'll present in a moment. If you think of like the way the existing developments of buildings 2 and 3 connect to Hammond Drive in a really beautiful way, where you have a sidewalk, a bike lane, you have a lot of vegetation, you have then a separate walkway in front of the retail spaces with outdoor seating. This one will not quite be as elegant. You can see it here on the screen because of existing infrastructure that's in place there. Georgia Power has, you can see it at the front, these teeny tiny little boxes on the screen are actually major cubicles. They're like large scale transformer units that provide power to not just like the development, but also wider parts of Perimeter Center. The applicants can speak more about this, but they've worked on getting those moved and worked on mobilizing a fair amount of money to get this moved, but came to the conclusion that it can't be done. So this is the reason why the development won't connect to the sidewalk in the same elegant way that the remainder of the development does. Overall, so before you've seen the remaining entitlements of office space and retail space, what's proposed now still includes an office component, but a significantly smaller office component of up to 300,000 square feet, a smaller retail and restaurant component of up to 22,000 square feet. What it adds is a hotel component. So they're looking on installing a hotel at Park Center with up to 175 rooms, and then a multi-unit residential component that would be rental apartments of up to 300 units. And then this chart sort of shows a bit more sort of like the sort of horse trade that the applicant is proposing to you all today, where they're proposing to trade the existing entitlement for the new entitlement on the right-hand side of the screen. And it's always tough to compare different use intensities of different uses to one another. Like a good way is trip generation. And that is like how many car trips does a certain development create, and how many car trips does the newly proposed development generate. And you can see it here at the bottom. Based on trip generation, the trip generation manual, the entitled users would create 4,900 daily car trips, while the proposed development program would create slightly less, 4,700 car trips. And then from a congestion standpoint, which is always a big concern, from a congestion standpoint, the most congested time period tends to be the PM peak hour. So that's the afternoon rush hour of traffic. And here we'll see a substantial decrease in trip generation from 700 to 460 car trips for largely two reasons. One, by mixing the users, you'll just have an amount of people who might visit the offices and who stay at the hotel right there and who don't have to hit the street at all, or an amount of employees will probably live in the development. And then the second aspect is that the peak periods are just flipped for apartments. Then for office workers come in the morning and leave in the afternoon, while residents tend to do the exact opposite. So you have complementary trip generation that utilizes the infrastructure in a better way and reduces overall congestion levels. So overall, the development proposes significant amount of density, but it proposes the density where our planning documents anticipate the density, as sort of most recently considered by the Edge City 2.0 development. It's right near Marta, so it has the highest likelihood of getting people to use alternative modes of transportation. The existing parks under development is of a high design quality and uses quality materials. This is the same developer, it is the same applicant, and they're proposing a development of similar high architectural and design standards. The same is true for public art. There's public art throughout the existing campus, and the applicant would also propose this like for the new phase, for phase 3, for building 4. And potentially there in the components that will not have the same urban design connection to the street, they're proposing to use art in some of those places to make it a more attractive environment. Overall, we know why the applicant is proposing, or why the applicant feels they cannot build an office building at the moment. The office market has been heavily impacted with high levels of vacancy and remote work. The same is true for Park Center as well. There is just no market demand for new office space at the moment. We feel that these uses are complementary to the existing development in Perimeter Center. We have restaurants right now that are having a hard time getting lunch tables filled, and the hotel guests and the apartment dwellers will help with that. And overall, we think it is from a infrastructure utilization, it is from its impact, it is an improvement over what was initially proposed. I've shared the comparison of the trip generation with the previous use. These will be at the end of the day, they will be market rate apartments at a fairly high price point, which will in its own right reduce the number of kids that will live there and will use the public schools. So we don't anticipate the impact to be tremendously high. Overall, staff recommends approval of this development. I do want to take a moment and go through the conditions that we have proposed to you all. And I'll go through them one by one, and then I'll go through select items in the overall development plan as well. First condition here is, all it does is it's tying it back to the 2015 development. So that's what it does. Like, so it references the same infrastructure conditions that were there at the time, but these are all fully implemented at the time. So this condition, all it does is it ties it back to the original rezoning. Condition number 2 ties it to the overall development plan. So everything that is in the overall development plan is also considered a zoning condition. Conditions 3 and 4 provide the overall parameters for the development program. So it provides the limits on office space, on residential units, on hotel spaces, and so forth. Like, it sets a height limit of up to 37 stories above the plaza level. We are suggesting here condition to require the residential tower to be a minimum of 15 stories as well. And the reason for that is that it fits in with the development and that it truly is a high quality, high-rise development and doesn't end up sort of being a mid-rise development. Condition number 6 here formalizes the public art commitment for the developer. So we're setting here a minimum cost of $50,000 that the developer will provide. They have voluntarily done this with the existing phases. They think it's an important part of their development too, but we'll formalize it here as part of a zoning condition. And then I want to highlight condition number 8 down here. Because of the Georgia Power cubicles that are there, especially, we don't know exactly what type of screening can be done around those. Georgia Power wants to hold those like relatively free and accessible. So what we're proposing here is that the applicant submit a final landscape plan at the time of submittal of the land disturbance permits for review and approval by the community development director. And then select requirements of the overall development plan. Condition number 3 here is the building materials. The existing development has high quality materials and the applicant proposes to do the same for this development. So we called out some materials here: stone, brick, glass, metal panels, to provide for flexibility. And we're setting a limit for, what often perceived as sort of lower tier materials like cementitious panels, ephes, which is the artificial, the stucco panels, that they can be used for accents. From a sustainability standpoint, the applicant is proposing a fair amount of sustainability measures. The existing buildings are certified LEED Gold, for instance. But we'll put here that there will be at least 8 electric vehicle charging stations placed throughout the development, and there will be wiring for an additional 16 additional charging stations throughout the development. Condition 10 requires active uses of both sides of the building. The building really has 2 fronts, one towards the interior on the plaza level, and the other one on along Perimeter Center Parkway. And we're requiring shopfront buildings or uses along both frontages. Number 11 here is where the parking deck is not, where the 2 towers are not covering the parking deck. The applicant is proposing planters and plantings to sort of break it up and provide green space for those. And then the last one here, number 18, just like states that at least 75% of the residential units will have a balcony, and the minimum dimension sort of that balcony of 5 by 5 feet. So overall, with those conditions, we recommend approval of this rezoning. Planning Commission has reviewed this and has seen the same application And the same submitted materials, and they've recommended approval as well unanimously in a 7-0 vote. We have not received any public comment for this development, neither for nor against. And with this, I would like to conclude my presentation, and the applicant has a lot more.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Jim George with KDC. Our offices are here in Dunwoody at 1040 Crown Point Parkway. Thank you for the opportunity for letting us appear before you this evening. We have our entire team with us. I'll ask them to stand up and be recognized. They will each introduce themselves when they come forward to answer specific questions. But we have Troutman Sanders, our zoning and real estate attorney. Cooper Carey is our architect, and Kimberly Horn is our civil engineer and traffic engineer. And I'll now turn it over to David Kirk with Troutman Troutman Pepper to make the presentation.
Great. Thank you, Jim. Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is David Kirk with the law firm Troutman Pepper Hamilton Sanders, 600 Peachtree Street. I believe only 2 of you were on the council in 2015, though obviously a number of you were involved and aware of what was going on during the initial rezoning. So I want to provide a little more history. I'm trying not to duplicate Paul's very thorough presentation, so I may skip over a few points, and I'm happy to come back. Our team is happy to come back to discuss. Just very quickly, the 13 acres that was rezoned to PD did not include Park Center 1, that first building that was built adjacent to the MARTA station, but it's all part of an overall development scheme and a master development. The overall development plan was, as Paul said, required because it's a PD, a planned development zoning, and that guided the overall layout, the design and materials, the landscaping, the streetscaping. It essentially was its own miniature zoning ordinance strictly for this piece of property. All of those improvements have been implemented at our expense. There was also a private development agreement. Now, this is something that's somewhat unusual. It's provided for under Georgia law that allows construction of what are called system improvements. In other words, things that will benefit the community as a whole and are not just required for the specific development. We executed a private development agreement to build what was then called the East-West Connector. It's now the Springwood Connector. We built that at our own expense, and that's been dedicated to the city. There was a DRI done. In an abundance of caution, we went through the process, and our traffic engineer prepared another traffic analysis, submitted that to ARC. They indicated that they did not think any further analysis was necessary. No further DRI was required, in large part because we're reducing the overall traffic demand. So as Paul noted, all the conditions of the 2015 rezoning have been satisfied, including extensive improvements to the streetscape, the trail system, that pedestrian access to MARTA. Site 4, the site we're talking about today, participated in the cost of those, even though the site wasn't developed, but it participated in the cost of those and continues to share in the ongoing maintenance of those improvements. I'm going to give you a very quick visual overview of the site, just showing what we've accomplished since 2015. Again, just sort of an overall view of the site, with Site 4 being that undeveloped portion to the lower right of that big photograph. The bridge, of course, connects to the MARTA rail station. I will say that as part of Perimeter Center 1's development, the developer at their expense extended the MARTA platform and then dedicated that to MARTA. So the pedestrian bridge connects to that MARTA rail station through Building 1 and provides that excellent pedestrian access. Speaking of pedestrian access, we built the multi-use trails to the west of the site, there in the lower right. Also provided right-of-way and construction for off-street bike lane on Hammond, where if you look in the upper right, that's the portion on the right-hand side is that, and that's the multi-use trail coming back from behind the building. The streetscape was mentioned, the plaza, the streetscape all of the streetscapes are in place and will remain. You can see in the upper right, that's the streetscape in front of Park Center 4, adjacent to Site 4, and that will of course remain. And then there's a good view of the plaza as well in that larger photo. The buildings are in fact high quality design and materials. We're using the same architect for this. Scott is here from the architecture team. Same architect, same commitment to high quality materials and construction as were present in buildings 1, 2, or 3. Park Center 4 will be compatible. It won't be identical because the uses are different, but it'll be a very compatible, high quality product. We voluntarily installed public art at the Plaza Center. This piece here is right here in the middle, but there are also 2 additional pieces of art that we installed as part of the Park Center 2 and 3 development. One here, one here. Those are metal kinetic structures that are really quite interesting. We're committed to providing additional art, and I'll show you in a moment where we're proposing the likely place to put that. So that brings us to the current request that reflects, as Paul mentioned, the fundamental changes in the world, fundamental changes in the real estate market, not just here, but everywhere in the nation. But when you boil it down, it's a fairly simple request. We want to rezone from PD conditional to PD conditional for the purpose of modifying those original conditions and changing the site plan for Park Center 4. It's primarily to allow that residential component of up to 300 units, but it also reduces the office, bless you, reduces the parking that exist on the site. The aim is really to create a true mixed-use environment that reflects those market changes, takes advantage of the density that the MARTA station can support, and then supports the overall success, not just of the project, but of the community as a whole. As Paul mentioned, it's consistent with the comprehensive plan, supports the findings of the Edge City 2.0 study and the LCI program. I mentioned the DRI. This last bullet indicates that ARC indicated no additional study was needed and that they were fully supportive of this proposal. Just very quickly, this is conceptual, and you've seen this, but I want to point out a couple of things, primarily about the stacking. You see here it says office or office and hotel, and down here it says residential or residential and hotel. We're working with and have been working with potential hotel and residential partners who have looked at this, and this is our current vision. The stacking could change, the office component could be reduced, but this is our current vision of how that site will look. This is the landscape plan. Everything you see in gray exists. So the only new areas of landscape will be here along Perimeter Center Parkway to the south of the building. This is the area we're thinking about placing the public arts. It'll be sort of a gateway feature as you come in here. One thing I do want to point out is that as part of Perimeter Center 2 and 3's development, all of the tree density requirements have been met. That doesn't mean we're not going to put more trees on the site. It just means as part of that initial development of 2 and 3, the tree density requirements were in fact met. Paul mentioned sustainability, and we could spend the entire evening going through this sustainability measure slide, but we're not going to, I promise, Madam Mayor. We can come back and talk about this. Most of these are actually already in place. There's some additional bike facilities that we're going to add that the code will require us to add, and that in fact we're going to add beyond that as an amenity to the residential space. Down here it's a fire lane, the required fire lane, and we're going to have a pervious surface there as well. Just a couple of the points there. This again is our current vision of how this could literally stack up. This represents, from a density standpoint, the up to levels that we're requesting. The look of these buildings, the height of these buildings could change based on, as I said, our ultimate development program. But this is our current vision that shows the retail down here at the bottom. It's reflected also at a little higher level up on the plaza level, an amenity space here adjacent to the residential. This would be the office and hotel component, and this would be the residential component. You can see the balconies that are in place there. So just in conclusion, and again, we're happy to come back to any of this. We actually have a few supplemental slides that we decided were best held in case you had questions. But I believe we've established a standard of excellence here with Park Center, and we're looking to build on that and continue that standard. The significant market changes, I don't think anyone in this room could deny that the market has changed significantly over the past several years. And this is a reaction to that in a favorable way to create a true mixed-use project that generates less traffic and takes advantage of the density that the MARTA station will support. We agree with staff and firmly believe that our project addresses and supports the comprehensive plan, as well as the Edge City 2.0 study, the LCI study. As Paul mentioned, both staff and the Planning Commission have thoroughly reviewed this proposal, has spent a lot of time talking with us and the entire team. They recommended approval with the conditions that we find completely acceptable. So, Madam Mayor, members of council, we're here this evening to request your approval of this rezoning with the proposed conditions. We're happy to answer any questions at the appropriate time and certainly appreciate your time and attention to this. Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, unless I see an objection, I will open the public hearing. Anyone will have 10 minutes for people to speak for this project and 10 minutes for people to speak against this project. If anyone would like to speak for it, just come on up. You can form a line down the middle, or you can sit in your chair till the person in front of you finishes. Either way. Is there anyone who would like to speak for this? Is there anyone who would like to speak against this? Seeing none, unless there is an objection, I close the public hearing. Public hearing is closed, and now we will have questions for the staff or the applicant. John, would you like to start? Just so I don't forget you.
I'm happy to go first. Thank you, Lynn.
Okay.
Paul, if you could, I want a little bit more information regarding condition number 6. I believe it was a change from the Planning Commission. Can you give us some background? I believe it's the public art aspect. Maybe it's the dollar amount. Can you give us some information regarding the possible change from the Planning Commission?
Yes. So there's no substantive difference between the conditions. What we're proposing, what we proposed then and now, is a minimum commitment of $50,000 that it either has to be installed at the time the development opens, or has to be submitted to us at that point as a cash amount, and so we can do it if need be. The applicant requested a different change in the wording that didn't substantively substantively change this. So it was more like a change in wording to clarify.
Okay. Just trying to understand what was changed.
Paul's looking, I think.
Yeah, I think the initial one, the thoughts of the applicant was that it required a public art piece plus $50,000 in commitment, and we clarified that in fact it meant public art in the value of $50,000 or more.
That's fine.
So this one should be clearer about that.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you. And Mr. Kirk, good to see you again. Thank you, sir. I've gone through the application. I've gone through all aspects of it. I'm impressed with the presentation. You're giving us something that we don't have here in Dunwoody, in the sense of development in the last 15 years. So thank you. It's the right place. I like it. I have questions regarding the hotel. I understand your stacking aspect. You really haven't tied down exactly what you're doing. The residential has to be up to a certain level. Tell me about presentation about public spaces above 15 stories. Is there anything in the sense of, you know, that there's a bunch of commercial and services down on the ground floor? Are there any services whatsoever or any public spaces on the rooftops above the 15th floor? Anything from a high-rise public space?
Councilman Hennigan, I'm going to pass that question to probably Jim or Scott on our team, who are Scott is the architect, because I think they can probably give you a better answer than I can.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate that.
Good evening, council members. I'm T-Jack Bagby with Cooper Carey. I'm a hospitality principal at that firm, and be happy to answer the question, sir. We have talked about and brainstormed a lot of various options for the hotel, but we have not necessarily landed on something right now. But there's the possibility of a rooftop experience at this location. It would have amazing views of Buckhead and of downtown. But we haven't settled on anything yet. We're still in the process, as David mentioned earlier, getting involved with a hospitality development partner, and they will help guide that programmatically for the hotel.
All right, so thank you. Basically, you have no real information. You're still in negotiations, and all things being equal, you're hoping that maybe it'll work out. So thank you. I'm looking forward to it. Thank you. There's no other questions for me, Lynn.
Thank you, John. Joe?
So I'm a big proponent of not mandating car parking, and way before I was on council, the city council adopted eliminating parking minimums. I have a two-part question. We can just kind of have a conversation about parking for a second here and just kind of make sure I understand what is to be proposed. I have sort of a academic possible question too. If you had to do it all over again, would you have built every one of those thousands of car spaces and built all that and spent all that money for that car parking, single occupancy, privately owned vehicles sitting there, induced demand, et cetera? Would you have done it again the same way today if you had to do it all over again? Or would you maybe have reduced a little bit of it? Leading question.
Well, based on what we know today, if we were left to our own devices, we would probably have done a little less parking. However, we were building that to suit a tenant, and their criteria really drove what we needed to do. And we actually did a little bit less parking than their initial criteria, but they wanted to be sure that they never had an employee who didn't have a place to park. So in hindsight, if we were doing it over, we might try to do a little bit less than what we did. Yes.
Like
Yeah,
an
I mean,
employer that encourage
obviously
carpooling.
elevated parking is very, very expensive. And so a developer never wants to develop more than the market
Right.
is really going to need. So, we do not want to overbuild parking.
I mean, I see the space in a different lens in my position and prior, right? When I'm walking around and I look at these things and I'm like, where's the humans? Where's the humans? I look at this, it's just like, wow, that's incredible amount of private money spent for that. It's ungodly. So when I look at it right now in the current year for this building, you're looking at up to 13 stories of parking on this.
No.
Am I
No.
reading that right? I'm reading
No.
3 levels below and 10 levels above plaza level. Is that correct?
Yeah, our baseline is basically 8 levels of parking. And the only reason we have that in there to go, below or higher is only if we get so fortunate to have some big deal come along that we don't expect. Our baseline is not to do that, but we want the ability, if we do have something come our way that we do need to go up another level or down a level, we wouldn't want to have to come back to go through another zoning process to get it. Our baseline is the 8 levels, and we really don't foresee a scenario where we're going to do more than that.
8 levels in total.
Yes. Yes.
I mean, I don't want to have Dunwoody stamp of, hey, look, we have the largest 10-story built-in parking stacked, whatever it's called, on top of where humans live and work.
Right. I mean, there are
It's
multiple
just-
reasons
yeah.
why we wouldn't want to go that high. Number one, once you get beyond about 8 levels, you get tired of driving up into a parking deck. And number two, it's incredibly expensive. Unless there's some compelling reason, we were never going to build that much parking.
Right.
So our baseline is what I would encourage you to look at. But give us the ability, if we are so lucky to have some extraordinary need, that we don't have to come back and ask to go down a level or up a level.
And again, I'm just reading the applicant, it's you're committing to a minimum of, I see that in the conditions, it's 8 charging stations out of 1,565. So there's 8 charging and there's another 16 ready to go. And then there's 20 spaces for bikes. So 1,565 for cars, 20 for bikes, 8 are going to be set for charging, and 16 are going to be potentially for charging. Are those correct numbers? Or is that what your formula and people say, for planners say, well, that's the formula to
For
provide?
charging stations, that's correct. And that's based on a couple of things. One is what we're seeing currently being used in our existing buildings, and what our design team is seeing in other projects that they are designing and have recently designed. But secondly, we've got to work to the market, number one, and as more spaces are required, we will certainly provide them. But also we want to realize that technology is going to change, and the car batteries that we have today are not going to be the ones that we have 5 years from now. Sure. And the charging technology is not going to be the same. So we don't want to go put 100 charging stations in that may be obsolete by the time that they're needed.
Sure.
So,
I read like Georgia State, they convinced Georgia State to not tear down a parking deck. I think I went to there because I graduated in 93 and it was a science building or something, and they converted it. They're either doing offices or something. So it's made to make that deck the way the deck is, if it's not angled. Is this deck flat so that come 50 or 75 years ago from now, it could be retrofitted and repurposed for, closing it in and reuse? Is it as a flat? I mean, versus is the
ramps are sloped, but the
main
floor plate is flat.
would be flat.
And of course, all things are possible. So,
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. I'm always like, hey, well, set it aside. So maybe in the future, 50 years from now, somebody doesn't have to knock down that building and they could retrofit it, because we not even have cars then. Let me see. So I just got to ask, Why can't we have owner occupied condos? Why can't we? I know these are apartments. I'm not saying no on that, but why can't we have owner occupied condos in this mix?
We are not in a position where we can get capital partners to invest in condos. Also, we are not condominium developers, and we don't know. In talking to people, we do not believe that this location site is going to work for a condo development. As I say, the people we've talked to have just told us that it's not financeable. The way a condo gets developed is very different to the way that an apartment project gets developed in terms of the financing and the way that the investment flows. So, we're not in a position that we can do condos on this site.
I've been hearing that. I've been on council for 4 years. I've been hearing that for 4 years. I've been hearing that for 10 years.
Yeah. But as David
Seems
is reminding me, there are a couple of points I do need to make. Although on day one, they will not be condos, but we are prepared to make the project condo friendly by the way we do the documents. If in 5 years the market changes and the condos can be converted, we could very easily have the condo documents in place, and our architect and I are very familiar with how to do that, so we can make the design condo friendly. Secondly, the utilities will be configured. The power is already going to be separately metered in every unit. The water services can be plumbed so that in the future, all we have to do is add a sub-meter to each unit. So the conversion can take place if and when the market reaches a point where this needs to be a condo project.
Thanks. I got a couple more questions, but as an aside, I have a tour of your facilities. I think they're world-class. I think it's beautiful. I love the sustainability efforts. I love that small little trail. And yes, it's up to the public entities to connect that from the private properties. And of course, the public has to have skin in the game. Public entities were great. They have the CID and so on. I know we asked our citizens in November to get skin in the game. They didn't want to, but we want to continue investing in our business district to make sure that we put the right public infrastructure to promote your success as well. So I just want to make that statement that we're going to continue moving forward as best as we can.
Well, the city's been a great partner with us.
Thank you.
All the way.
Thank you. Talk about public or private. There's 3 acres of green space that you're committed to. And I love your plaza today. I want to activate it. I will say a unnamed development that came online recently before I got on council, smaller development, much lesser, committed to a little pocket, quote unquote, park or space. I don't know what to use that name. It's on a corner. It has a little bit of astroturf, and it might be the size of this space here, half of this room, but it's just sitting there. It's not activated.
Well, that little, sorry.
Let me just, by the developer or known to the public of what's going on, et cetera. There's other developers that are doing a really bang up job here in Dunwoody that have activated their private space and activated in public. So I'd like to hear, do you have any, is your green space going to be just open to the public? As could it be as a condition during a certain number of hours? So that'd be one question. Number 2, this is where we got to have the trust factor. Would you intend on activating that? Like, okay, I'll just say Ashford Lane.
Right, yes. And I also am very impressed with that project. I think it's amazing what they did there. And we would very much want to try to do something like they did. Currently, we have a pocket park that is at the south end of building 3 there by the creek. And it's open to the public. The plaza space is open to the public. And this little pocket park that we're going to do at the south end of the 4th project will also be open to the public. And absolutely, we would strive to activate these spaces like this great project here that you just mentioned.
Yeah, once we have some people living there and you got others, a couple of restaurants, you make a vibe, get there, stay there after 5 PM, et cetera. Yeah. I think I'm about at the last. Yeah, I think so. Okay. That's all the question I have. Thank you.
Rob? Well, I jump around. I'm jumping around, yeah.
So,
It's to go in order. It just sometimes happens.
John and Joe have already been quite thorough, so I'm just gonna make an observation. I'm very happy to see a residential component in this. This is probably the most urban corner of the city, and I don't want to see a corner that's dead in the evenings and on the weekends. And I think putting a hotel and putting some places for people to live there will keep a little bit of life in that corner outside of Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. So I'm happy to see that.
Stacy?
Thank you very much.
Yeah, now you can jump back in.
I just kind of want to echo what I think John said, and the buildings 1, 2, and 3. I wish every developer was as thorough and as good as you all were, because it is a great project in our city. Joe alluded to a smaller development down the street from here. I wish that he could take a lesson from you all. Having said that, walk me through the pedestrian access. So if I'm living in the apartment and I want to get to MARTA and it's raining and how do I get there? I couldn't visualize that.
Yeah.
Scott Fleming, our architect, is going to talk to you about.
Thank you. I'm Scott Fleming with Cooper Carey. I actually was the project architect and project manager for buildings 2 and 3, heavily involved in building 1. Pretty much my entire career, Cooper Carey has been in Dunwoody working with KDC on this development. So to your question, if we are in the residential building, which we've got labeled here as PC4, you can actually walk, and I'll flip to another slide to show this, but you can actually walk. You see the pedestrian development here undercover. It is undercover. There's an arcade way, and I'll show that about the activity in life as you move across. And then you would cut across the plaza. You might get a little wet, have your umbrella until you get to the bridge. And then you can move from there across through building 1 to the platform extension that we did as part of building 1. Here we go. So this is the plaza level. So you can see the tan color here is actually undercover the building. We've cut that back to create this arcade that lines this linear park that's existing on the plaza. To the left is the residential lobby that sits 1 level above perimeter center that overlooks the pocket park. And so you'd be able to walk across that, across retail and food and beverage, across what we're proposing is a ride share loop and kind of a common lobby for everyone to either sit outside for ride share or on the interior, and kind of a co-work type space. We could envision a lot of things that would happen to keep that activated across the office lobby. And then at that point, you would move right across, as you can see my cursor here, and the bridge is right below or underneath our keynotes.
And remind me, you don't have to enter building 2 to get to the bridge.
That's
okay,
correct.
that's what I can remember.
Yeah.
Okay. That was it for me. I just wanted to understand, and then, okay, no, I did have, now go back. Would I ever want to just go down to the lower level and walk across the street and the crosswalk? And how does that look? And how are we making that pedestrian friendly on the street level?
So if you're at this level of the plaza to get to Perimeter Center Parkway at the lower level, so if you're a resident of the apartment tower, you can actually go down to that lowest level, and we'll provide a way from there, from the elevator or stair, to get out to that access. And you can see here in this diagram, what we're proposing is to bring the sidewalk experience into the site across the retail. And then you can see we're creating an opportunity where you can come kind of mid-block of Perimeter Center, or you can swoop along and then tie in along Springwood Connector. And so where this elevator bank is down below, you'd have that opportunity to come out and engage that. Otherwise, we'd encourage you to actually take advantage of what we've developed on the plaza itself and actually get to Perimeter Center Park that way.
I'm good. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So, I really just have comments, and a lot of them echo what others have said already. Obviously, the existing development that's been completed, we've certainly demonstrated the commitment to quality, and that's a first class development that's there. I think what you're planning to put in was a wise pivot given the market conditions, but I also think it's necessary, because if I would say that there's one very important thing missing from what's there now, it's people. And having a residential and hotel component there, I think is going to be critical to supporting the businesses. Everybody wants great restaurants and great retail, but what those businesses need are people patronizing them, and having this where people could walk right to those, I think is going to be support that effort and really help to vitalize that area. It was mentioned briefly by the architect about the plaza space. I do see that becoming an activated space. You talked about activating the space. I see that, it's kind of not now just because there's no connection there, but I do see that being a very activated space when this is completed, and having all this a block from MARTA in this heart of our commercial district with restaurants and retail and large mall and office space nearby. I do see this being a very pedestrian friendly. I know there's concerns about the parking, but really I see a lot of people not needing a car to live here. They could do everything they need to just walking around. So this looks great. It's consistent with our Edge City and everything that we're trying to do in the perimeter area. So thank you for the very thorough and detailed presentation. And that, like I said, I don't really have questions. There were just comments. Are there any other questions or comments at this point? Okay, this was the public hearing. Well, the public hearing is concluded. This is the first read, and this will be back before us at the next council meeting, I anticipate. Correct? In a month. Okay. 1 month, sorry. Any other questions or comments from the app?
We do want to thank you very much for the time and the consideration and for the great cooperation that we've had with the staff. We've been working on this for a good long time. And the city of Dunwoody has been such a wonderful partner for the last 11 years. So we just want to thank you very much for everything.
Okay. All right, thank you. All right, next on the agenda is the consent agenda. Any questions or comments?
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved by Rob, second by Stacy. Any questions? All right, all in favor of approving the consent agenda?
Aye.
It's approved unanimously. Moving on to the business items. Item number 9.
Item number 9 is a contract award for Parks and Recreation sign package of Rachel Waldron.
Good evening. She's okay. I'm here back tonight to discuss completing our sign package. As you know, this is 8 more signs to add on to what we already have. So this will be our Brook Run sign, Donaldson Bannister Farm, Dummy Park and Nature Center, Wildcat Park, Homecoming Park, and then a couple pedestal signs. Examples of each are within the packet. But as you recall, Signorama Roswell was our low bid at just over $125,000. We're asking tonight that we go ahead and move forward with this contract, and we're able to execute the documents.
Okay, thank you. Any comments or questions? I'll start with John since I can't see you raise a hand.
All right, thank you, Tom. I know there was some comments in the last council meeting regarding the possible signage for, I guess, Wildcat and Homecoming Park about possibly removing those. Is there, as far as staff was concerned, if we were to remove those today and we wanted to add them 3 years from now, what would the price in the sense of the same design, the same, I'm sure we would not have the same bidder, but I'm guessing we could still get the same design done by somebody. They might look a little different, but they'd be very similar. What was staff's thoughts on, did you do any analysis regarding those 2 parks and a possibility of deferring those?
Yeah, so we could, the original vendor was Hilton Displays. We used their initial design set to bid it back out. Sinorama was able to mimic that. So that, yeah, that would be no problem. Everything would still be very cohesive if we decided to wait on those two.
And staff's recommendation is to go forward with them, or staff, I guess, I mean, as far as the price would go down, we could put them on hold until we decided to do something with those parks, or the staff didn't really have a recommendation as far as going forward or holding, I guess.
Yeah, so Sinorama could pull these from the quote and then give us that updated price. They wouldn't be able to, if it's several years from now, as you're referencing. My assumption would be that the price would go up to add those later just because of the stonework that's needed.
Right.
But frankly, Steph, we're excited to get the signs done that we can. So I'm really okay either way.
No, I'm in agreement that the signs for the current parks need to get done. I'm on the fence on whether we should do the signs or not do the signs. I'm looking forward to hearing other council members' thoughts. Thanks.
Yeah.
Nothing else, Tom.
Rob?
I'll just jump into the question that John raised. I say, let's go ahead and put signs on all of them now. I mean, they'll be similar, but I think with a different manufacturer, they'll still be slightly different. So I think this will help with consistency. And at least in my mind, we're going to do something with Wildcat and Homecoming, you know, even if they're just kind of more passive uses. For the next several years, they're still city parks and people still have to have signs and know where they are. And that's my thought on that.
I'm gonna jump in with, and I agree with Rob. They are our city parks. We do have programming there in both parks. The playground at Wildcat Park is used all the time. There are one of our city parks. They're not gonna look like what we thought they were gonna look like in the next year or two, but they're still our city parks and we still have to maintain them. Let's make them look like city parks.
Hey, Joe?
So I was on the fence on this, but I see, I'm listening, right? I'm Libra here. Yeah, on one hand about the signs was, it's like, I was hoping that we'd have an organic citizen bubbling up group of saying, we actually want to build these parks and do what was planned, and we'll help the city figure out a way to finance it. And then we'll put the signs in as it designated as park. Let me ask you a side question, Rachel. I'm not on the website right now. If I jump on the city's parks inventory, Wildcat and Homecoming is listed.
Yes. Yep.
Okay. And does it actually kind of show, again, I don't want to put you on the spot here. Like for instance, the Wildcat, does it show it has the small playground? Does it, I mean, we don't really have per se amenities at Homecoming. It's an open sports field, but is that what are we listening to description? Like for Homecoming, it shows like an open grass play field or something in a description for people.
Right. So if you go to the parks homepage, it has the full list, and Wildcat and Homecoming are included in that. And both have pictures of what the site looks like currently, and then they both link to the adopted master plan so folks can see. Yeah.
That was my second question there. It's like, what is today? What could be maybe in the future? Okay. So, all right. At the end of the day, it's not a huge dollar amount. We're going to put those wherever it would have been in the master plan, I guess, per se. They're not going to impact any future putting in. I'm remembering on the Homecoming in front of Vermec, we did want to, wherever that is aligned up, I know that we tweaked the plan so that we're going to have, we eventually would build a nice wider sidewalk and more trees. So that's, it's not going to affect that in the future if we build a better sidewalk and everything else for the Homecoming. Okay. All right. Okay. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. And Mayor Deutsch, I cannot see you on video, so do you have any comments or questions?
No, thank you for handling this now, Tom. My cough was going to annoy all of us more. I think that it sounds like there's not consensus really to take them off, so I'm okay with just moving ahead with them. All of them. Thank you.
This is a business item.
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved by Stacy, second by Joe. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Rachel, you're up again. Item 10.
Item 10 is contract award for North Shalford Annex maintenance repairs. Rachel Waldron.
Yes, so these are the window repairs for the leaks, both coming outside and inside. And Southern Preservation Systems, is our low bid at just over $180,000. I know there's some concerns between that and our 509 bid, but that's why we added that 1-year parts and labor warranty to the work that'll be done by Southern Preservation Systems if we are able to award them the contract. I know we had some questions. I know the mayor was concerned, we're still gonna have our curvature, the building will still look the same. It'll just have the correct windows this time for the leak-free. Hopefully on this one, but so yeah, so just looking forward to awarding this contract if you so choose.
All right, thank you. Come to questions?
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved by
Hey,
Joe, second by Rob.
I have a
Councilman Hickenlooper, Deutsch, any
question.
comments?
It's me, Lynn, Mayor, whatever. I have a question. Rachel, I'm not as concerned that it looks the same. Are we confident that by keeping the curvature, I have to figure out how to say this correctly, that we're not making it harder to keep it dry? Like, are they confident that whatever they're gonna do, like, would it be easier and it's safer to like straighten it all out?
So it's gonna be easier for
Right.
them to follow the curvature.
Okay.
When she's not up here, of the existing shape of the building. And
Mhm.
again, that's why they're adding that 1-year warranty on there. And these are the drawings. If you remember, we had an engineer come and look at everything that specifically needs to be done. And that's what Southern Preservation Systems will be doing.
Okay. Thank you.
We have a motion on the floor. So we'll call to a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. This
Item
is item
number-
11.
Item number 11 is an ordinance to amend chapter 24 offenses and miscellaneous provisions of the City of Dunwoody Code of Ordinances to amend the clean indoor air regulations. Madeline Smith.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. The text amendment to the Clean Indoor Air Act before you tonight was prompted by Councilman Seconder. At his request, staff has worked with Ms. Jasmine Hooper of the American Heart Association to prepare the proposed changes this evening. The nature of the amendment is to clarify the existing rules and to remove certain exemptions for establishments like bars and hookah lounges. Ms. Hooper is here tonight to provide a more in-depth presentation, so I'll hand this over to her at this time.
All right, good evening, Honorable Mayor Lynn Deutsch, members of the Dunwoody City Council and staff. My name is Jasmine Hooper and I serve as the Community Advocacy Director for the Metro Atlanta American Heart Association. It is both an honor and a privilege to address you tonight as we embark on this journey towards a healthier and more vibrant city of Dunwoody. So, as Madeline said, I will be discussing some of the text amendments that we suggest. So what do we know about the impact of secondhand smoke? Well, we know that there is no safe level of secondhand smoke exposure. And we know that there are many detrimental health impacts of secondhand smoke exposure. We know that each year, countless lives are tragically cut short and families are devastated by this preventable public health crisis, from respiratory ailments to cardiovascular disease. The toll of secondhand smoke reaches far and wide, and it affects individuals of all ages and all walks of life. We know that $5.6 million a year are lost in productivity, and that establishments that are not smoke-free spend an average of $9,000 to $14,000 more per year in maintenance costs than their smoke-free counterparts. We also know that employees who do not smoke but are exposed to secondhand smoke exposure in the workplace have an increased risk of heart disease, stroke, and lung cancer. So, as we always say, smoke-free laws are good for businesses, employees, and customers. So now I will go into more detail about the concerns with the current 2019 Clean Indoor Air Act. And the greatest concern would be the loophole that, excuse me, I stand before you tonight to address the concerns raised regarding the proposed amendments of the Clean Indoor Air Act of 2019, specifically regarding the loophole it creates for future hookah businesses and establishments to set up shop here in the Dunwoody Committee. And I share your commitment to ensuring the health and well-being of Dunwoody residents. I firmly believe that we have crafted legislation that strikes a balance between protecting public health and respecting the rights of business owners by drawing upon best practices from our colleagues at Americans for Non-Smokers' Rights and lessons learned from other communities. We have developed a comprehensive smoke-free ordinance that addresses these concerns. So, as I said, and as Madeline said, the text amendments seek to create stricter definitions and remove exemptions. And this is illustrated under section 24-66 of the 2019 Clean Indoor Air Act, where the definitions do not currently capture hookah lounges or cigar lounges. And under section 24-73, under exemptions, establishments who meet the sales revenue of at least 50% percentage of sales of alcohol are exempt from this ordinance. So that means, for example, if a business owner wanted to set up Hookah Lounge A, as long as 50% of their sales are made up of alcohol, they could legally set up a hookah lounge or a cigar lounge. Our recommendation is to remove such exemption and include clearly defined language in the prohibition section, which prohibits any future hookah lounges from setting up. Some of our other best practices are referencing to civil penalties and fines instead of law enforcement. We recommend strong workplace definitions, which would protect workers in all work sites, not just corporate offices, but those who work in construction sites, who work in bars, restaurant lounges. And we, as I said, recommend that you remove those exemptions with freestanding bars, lounges, and hotels. And we recommend that you prohibit smoking in enclosed and outdoor public spaces and apply this ordinance to City of Dunwoody owned facilities. I'm deeply grateful, for the opportunity to work alongside our champion City Council member, Joe Seconder, and the dedicated city staff who have tirelessly engaged with me to shape this ordinance. Their commitment to the well-being of the Dunwoody community is truly commendable. And I'm confident that together we can enact meaningful change that will benefit generations to come. Thank you so much. And I'm going to turn it over to Tanya Chang, who is the Vice President of Advocacy in the Southeast region at American Heart Association. Thank you.
Good evening. I am honored to be with you all this evening, and on behalf of the Heart Association and as a former Dunwoody resident, I recently moved to Alpharetta. Don't be mad at me. I still spend a lot of my time because I still have family here and I love this community. I have family that live in the Redfield subdivision, just up the road. I spend a lot of time here, and it means I also still spend a lot of my money here because I have 11-year-old twin niece and nephew that I like to dote on here. So thank you all for taking this up. If you all do pass this ordinance, and I strongly encourage you to do so, you would be joining over 1,000 cities across the country who have taken this very important step, that have prioritized the health of their communities and passed comparable policies. So I encourage you to support the good work of our councilman and Jasmine. Thank you so much.
Good evening, Council and Mayor. My name is Brittany Prince, and I serve as the CEO of WellStart Initiatives, which is a nonprofit, and I also serve as the Assistant Director of Emory University School of Medicine Urban Health Initiative, where I have over 7 years of working in tobacco use. My role with tobacco use is one, educating our providers on how to educate their patients in this matter, as well as also providing free classes to individuals who are smokers to try to prevent them from smoking. In 2018, I lost my uncle, Chapo Bennett, to COPD as a result from smoking, as well as lost my uncle to COPD because of his addiction to tobacco products and his ongoing exposure to secondhand smoke at his workplace. By his 50s, he was obligated to walk around with a oxygen tank and lost his life in his 60s. 2 months ago, his brother, who was not a smoker but worked at his job site, also lost his life to the same disease because of the laws that was not put in place for secondhand smoke at his work site. Like my uncle's, employers at all work sites deserve to be protected from secondhand exposure. Here in Atlanta, we now see that hookah is a second nature here. And what many don't know is that 1 hour session of smoking hookah, users can inhale 100 to 200 times the amount of smoke they will inhale from a single cigarette. And of course, the stats are similar for secondhand smoke exposure during these sessions. Hookah contains nicotine, tar, carbon monoxide, and heavy metals such as arsenic and lead. This can lead to higher risk of heart disease and strokes for patients. Smoke-free environment provides tenants and staff with a healthier and safer environment, enhances the economic growth and higher productivity for this amazing city. So I ask that you join with us with looking at the Clean Air Act.
Thank you so much for your time, and I can answer any questions that anyone may have.
Questions?
So Jasmine, again, thank you for all the due diligence that you and your team has worked with to back this up. It's a lot of work. And you did this pro bono, right? We haven't paid you a dime, right? City did. So you looked at our code, you reviewed things, you did great analysis, and then figured out what we had current operations today as well. So thank you for providing that. And you've done due diligence. You've been working with staff behind the scenes, right? And then you met with other council elected officials. So sincerely appreciate the time and effort you have put into this. It really is a calling. Thank you for doing that. So I just have a couple of high level questions just to level set the stage. Again, you've got a great presentation. Your colleagues have given background. So this updates, it doesn't infringe anybody else's right to smoke. Is that a true statement?
Correct. The text amendments that we suggest to the 2019 Clean Indoor Air Act do not infringe upon anyone's right to smoke. The purpose of this ordinance is to protect the health and well-being of all individuals in public spaces. So people who wish to smoke can still eat and drink in smoke-free restaurants and bars. They will just be asked to step outside. And I believe the suggested distance was about 15 to 20 feet from the door. So it's not, this ordinance is not specifically targeting smokers, but rather aiming to create a healthier environment for everyone else.
And as far as your colleague mentioned the COPD, and then there's an uncle that didn't even smoke, had it. I hear about ventilation systems and so on. Is that good enough to help protect those impacts of secondhand smoking?
Unfortunately, it's not, and that's a widely held misconception. Ventilation systems do not remove all secondhand smoke. What they do is remove the scent of tobacco smoke, and it removes the visibility of the smoke, but it's not effective in removing all exposure to secondhand smoke.
And I think we've already kind of confirmed about, you just heard about the hookah and vaping there. Sounds like it's even more harmful than secondhand smoke.
Absolutely. Because of the flavors that are included in hookah, it can be very addictive, and the manner in which hookah is usually smoked is, casually in settings for long periods of time, much longer than anyone would spend smoking a cigarette, for example, if they were just to step outside. So no, vaping and hookah products are not less harmful. They're kind of more addictive, and evidence suggests that they are still harmful in terms of secondhand smoke exposure. And it's best to treat all forms of smoking, including cigarettes, e-cigarettes, e-dab rigs, the whole gambit, equally when it comes to implementing smoke-free policies.
And just last question, you've worked with other municipalities in Georgia, correct?
Yes.
Off the top of your head, can you, not to put you on the spot, can you name a few?
Yes, so far we have seen 11 municipalities implement comprehensive smoke-free policies. Some of our neighbors here in DeKalb, Storyville, Chambly. We are in current conversations with DeKalb County Commissioners. We've seen Gwinnett pass this. And we've seen the city of Atlanta some years ago pass smoke-free ordinance as well.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
No further
Oh,
questions.
and Savannah, which is our wonderful model.
Okay, thanks.
Rob?
So to follow up on Joe's last question, with communities that have implemented this, have any issues or complications arisen in those? Anything we should be aware of as we're looking at this?
I would say, in terms of the text, Dunwoody is already doing a really great job. You all's last ordinance was implemented in 2019, which makes you all really ahead of the curve here. So I don't think that you'll have anything to worry about, similar to what some of the other cities are dealing with. Some of the other cities don't have as clearly defined definitions, which leaves for a lot of gray area. So you all are already, as it stands, really doing much better than many cities. This amendment is really just to protect the city from an onslaught of future hookah and cigar lounges setting up shop because of that loophole.
So, and then just to clarify in reading this, just because we use the phrase smoking a lot, you're pretty much including any airborne way of inhaling nicotine. So vaping is what I'm getting at, is included in this.
Yes, and
I'm just clarify, that's what was my understanding as well. Just confirm.
Yes, so in the proposed ordinance, you'll see in the definition of smoking, we try to keep it very comprehensive and include all the different tobacco industry products that are new and up to date. Like I said, there's dab rigs, there's all different types of marijuana products. So it includes vaping, hookah, cigarettes, everything.
All right, so I'm reading this and just, I mean, I understand the correcting our code, to quash down the exceptions. But I was walking out of Walgreens just before I came here, and there was a man standing right by the entrance smoking a cigarette. So I'm reading this in violations and penalties, and a person who refuses to comply with the request because it's within 20 feet of the doorway, so it's not allowed. So what am I supposed to do? Call code enforcement and say, you need to come out and get this guy to move? Like, I understand, but I also need to understand the enforceability. Why are we passing a code and code change if they're not enforceable? So walk me through that scenario. If I'm supposed to look at the guy and say, yeah, you can't smoke here. He's supposed to know that. Walk me through that scenario.
Sure, let me just turn to enforcement here. So on page, this is section 24-81 under enforcement. We recommend that, the city has decided that the city manager will be the authorized staff person to enforce this article. So what we recommend is yes.
Excuse me, but can you remove the website, the page that's blocking? I'd love to see the facial expressions. I think I just missed one.
What is
Turn off the PowerPoint presentation.
escape?
And then maybe staff, I'm sorry to interrupt, Tom, but maybe staff should be helping with this answer as well. Somebody from the city, Richard, or whoever's guiding this process from community development. Thank you.
So yes, normally you could ask the person, but if you don't feel comfortable, you'd have to call code enforcement or police. And so
If I read this right, and you can correct me here, this is an issue with the establishment and their compliance with this, correct? So it would be a code issue with the business that is allowing their customers to smoke too close to the door, for example.
Correct.
Is that my understanding?
yes,
Okay.
we have had a situation that rose to calling code enforcement, and they went and addressed it with the building's owner. There were multiple people standing too close to the doorway smoking, so we addressed it with them.
I believe items, letter G and E under section 24-81, would answer your question, council member.
Since I can't see you, Councilman Hennigan, do you have any questions?
Thank you, Tom. Happy to jump in. Madeline, this is for you if you could. This afternoon, I took the pleasure of calling the Habes Lounge. It's a hookah bar that's located on Winners Chapel Road, currently in operation. How does this proposed ordinance affect the current business, the one and only hookah location that we have in the city of Dunwoody, as far as I know? How would that affect that business?
So my understanding is that the Habibi's Lounge is still in the process of getting their permits. I don't believe they've been issued the business license, but you can correct me if I'm wrong, Paul.
No, business is open. They're in the process of obtaining their final alcohol license. That's what Madeline was referencing. It's an existing business, and that business would be grandfathered in based on their current operations.
Okay, so I just heard 2 minutes ago that we are ahead of the curve, that we are way ahead when it comes to tobacco, regulations. Madeline, if you could, if a company were to start and ask for a allowance to open a cigar shop, what's the process?
So for just retail of cigars, that would essentially be a business license issue. They would just have to get their business license. But in terms of smoking indoors, the Clean Indoor Air Act is intended to prevent people from smoking indoors, but you can still sell tobacco products. You just have to get your proper business license with the city.
Okay, so if we were to pass this ordinance as is, then we would be outlawing, for the most part, cigar bars and hookah bars indefinitely into the future, with no exceptions and no ways around of allowing that type of business operation.
Councilmember Hennigan, if you can see me, if I
can see you just fine. Thank you.
Thank you. If I can offer a clarifying point, after reviewing your comments and gaining knowledge of the Habib's Lounge, Hookah Lounge, the American Heart Association did make some recommended amendments to our initial text changes. So we recommend adding a definition for hookah lounge and for cigar lounge that reads, hookah lounge means a standalone establishment in existence as of the effective date of this ordinance that has not suspended operation for more than 60 consecutive days after the effective date of this ordinance and has obtained a permit from the Department of Revenue or similar, valid for a period of at least 1 year and renewed quarterly, or annually based on your applicable law here in Dunwoody, which derives more than 51% of its quarterly or annually based on applicable law gross revenue from the sale of hookah and or cigar products for consumption on the premises by customers. And we have a separate definition for hookah and a hookah lounge and a separate definition for cigar lounge. But for a hookah lounge, it would read, a hookah lounge does not permit the smoking of any products except hookah on the premises, and nor does it allow individuals under the age of 21 to enter the premises. And a similar language would be recommended for a cigar lounge, where it would say a cigar lounge does not permit the smoking of any products except cigars on the premises, nor does it allow individuals under the age of 21 to enter. And so what this does, including that definition, which would allow you to then reference it in the exceptions section. Let me just turn to that. If you give me one moment. So once it's defined, you can give me one moment.
So you're
Jasmine, while you're looking
proposing
for that, I just
changes
want
that
to
have not been
clarify.
given to us yet. So in other words, you're discussing changes that have not been brought in front of council. It's different from what was presented in the packet. Is that correct?
But yeah, that's what I was just going to clarify, John. So the changes that Jasmine is talking about, we do have a printed copy that was provided to council tonight, and the changes are highlighted in yellow.
Yeah, I haven't seen
But the
that,
changes
neither
were
has
not
the
in the
public.
packet.
Right. Again, to me, this just seems like a little bit of an overstep. I was just told that we are doing great, that we have laws that cover 90% of what we need. We have businesses that are operating. Looks like we are trying to stop businesses that would be in the future a benefit for adults to act like adults. To me, the smoke machines and the cleaning machines, I'd like to see more evidence about that being not adequate. And I have a question then for our legal counsel, if I may. Ken, if you could take a look at this ordinance, I don't understand why everything above the word above the definitions is needed. I've been on council for many years, and we did sexually orientated businesses with lots and lots of case law and lots of information. Why is all that information brought in front of us and put in front of our ordinance? Is that needed?
I didn't draft this, John. I would have to refer to Joe and the team.
Again, this to me seems like a copy and paste, nothing against the American Heart Association. I appreciate the work you do, but to me, this is not a Dunwoody ordinance. This has not been looked at closely by us. I would want to go through this and really understand the how and why what you are presenting. To me, that your justification for this is not needed. I want this to be Dunwoody centric with Dunwoody, affect how it affects our businesses and why it's needed. To me, it's an overstep, and I'll let the other council continue to discuss, but I think I know where I'm leaning on this. I appreciate you, ladies. I really do. Thank you for what you do. And I'm sorry for your uncle, and I'm sorry for anybody that did pass based on this. That being said, I think I know where I'm at on some of this. I am looking forward to looking at your changes, but that being said, I think you are stopping businesses that could be handled effectively, reasonably, and are done in other parts of the United States, allowing adults to be adults. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Just to address the section 24-66 findings and intent, in the 2019 Clean Indoor Air Act, the findings and intent section that was relevant then is included in the ordinance. It's just included in the middle of the ordinance, and what we recommended is just putting it at the top. But if the city finds, and this is just to council member, to your point, this is just to reference the studies that have informed the recommended changes. But if that's something that the city would like to condense, or if you see fit to remove it, we don't object that. But it was in the 2019 Clean Indoor Air Act as well. We just moved it to the top to make it more succinct and easy to read.
Mayor Deutsch, any comments or questions?
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of hookah bars, so I'm okay if we only end up with one in all of Dunwoody. That's okay. But I think that this is really procedural, but we can't have a first read with it handed to us, not published. So we're gonna internally have to figure out what that means for the next time we see this. Because if it changed from what was published on the, with the agenda, that's not how we work. So we, staff will work with everybody and we'll figure out what to do next. That's it.
Yes, Joe.
Madeline, do you have an electronic copy of the revisions? I see the manual one here. I mean, the manual, the paper in yellow, right? So the yellow highlight is literally the difference from what was submitted in the packet, correct? That's printed on that's been handed out?
Yeah, we were sent a redlined version earlier this afternoon and I just printed it out, hopefully in a way that was a little bit easier to read than the red lines. So yes, the changes are highlighted there.
Yeah, I appreciate, the electronic one was a lot of red. I didn't know what was the change from what was some, because we had like the change. So if we know that, so the changes I'm reading today, I just want to validate the change you said in section 2467, there's a new definition of cigar lounge that did not exist. Is that correct?
Correct.
So before we had no definition of a cigar lounge. Okay, so the new thing that was not in the packet, but it was changed today and it was sent to council was a definition of a cigar lounge, number one. Looks like there's also a definition of a hookah lounge, correct? And that did not exist prior?
Correct. I believe it was amended.
Okay, and then if I
2475.
page through here, I only, then I see one more bullet point under 2475, bullet point A. Referring to cigar and hookah lounges as defined by this chapter. So that looks like the three changes that have been sent to us, right?
I was very confused, I will be honest, by the red line because there's still questions in the comment section. So if the paper copy we're handed is a clean red line version, that's fine. But I'm kind of with Lynn, we didn't have it electronically before this and it wasn't published. So
Right, which is fine because there's no, this is not a zoning case. There's no timeline by which we must march on. So the next time we see it, if we want to defer it, we can or whatever, but we need to have the clean version before the next meeting.
Any further questions or comments? This is the first read, so this will be back before us. Thank you, Madeline, Jasmine, and team.
Thank you.
Tom, don't forget we have a new number 12.
Yes, as amended, we have a new item 12. Sharon, can you read that for us, please?
Yes. Item number 12 is a request for pre-construction funding for Real-Time Crime Center, Deputy Chief Mike Carlson. Or Sergeant Creek.
Lieutenant Creek.
We'll get it right in a minute.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. What we wanted to bring to you today is we are in the position where we're ready to break ground for a real-time crime center. We have pre-construction needs that need to occur in that room prior to our integrator getting there. We had chose to do this with our city-approved vendors through our facilities group to save significant costs. At this point, it will be $53,670.69 for all the pre-construction needs. Once this is done, it'll allow our integrator to move into the room and outfit the RTCC with a expected completion date of June 1st, 2023.
Thank you. Any comments or questions? Stacy?
Move to approve.
second.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Just before we vote, Councilman Hennigan, Mayor Deutsch, any comments or questions?
I'm good.
I'm good.
All right. All in favor of Item number 12, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
All right, we're moving on to discussion items. Michael, you are up. We have a couple of trail projects to talk about.
Good evening. The first one is the North Shallowford Path Project, which way back in the Georgetown master plan, North Shallowford was identified for multimodal improvements, bicycle, pedestrian, streetscape. Part of the road, there's parts of the road on one side now that don't have any sidewalk. And then this was also included in the Dunwoody Trail Plan as project P14 and is in the first two phases of implementation from that plan. A few years ago now, we applied for and received $560,000 from Atlanta Regional Commission for design of this project for a path project on North Shallowford. And then the city to date has allocated an additional $200,000 for SPLOST funding to satisfy the 20% match requirements. We advertised the request for qualifications, went through the qualifications-based selection process required for federal funding, and found AECOM to be the most qualified, responsive firm for this contract. And we've been in negotiations with them for a fee for the concept phase, which would include the initial concept plans, all the environmental assessments that are required, traffic analysis, and public involvement and public outreach. And the last number we had from them was 458,000. We asked them to make a few more changes, and we should have a final number before the next council meeting when we'll ask for approval of this contract to get through the concept phase on this project. And I'll answer any questions.
Joe?
So I talked to you, I know a little bit more about the Winners Chapel funding for the construction. So I remember this is a federal grant that we received for this phase.
We received federal funding for the design phase of the project. We haven't received any federal funding for right of way or construction at this point. Although once you kind of get in the federal process, it's easier to ask for those funds down the road. So there's a potential to get construction funding, but we don't have it yet.
Right. I don't want to mix the two items on the agenda here, because I know we have construction allocated for federal funding for Winners Chapel. Therefore, we have to take the higher bar for design. And this is a concept here. And if we were I want to just try to say this seems like it's quite a lot of money to do a concept design, because we'll still have to go back and do construction design after this as well. And we're going to have to do a second series of engineering.
Right, that's right. And
design.
yes, it is expensive, and that's part of the cost of doing business with the federal government. And because even though we don't have construction funding, we have federal funding for design. We still have to follow that process. Any federal money we're using, we're going to have to follow that process.
Okay. All right. Okay. Thanks.
Stacy, Rob? John, do you have any questions or comments?
Yeah, Michael, if I could, tell me about the plans. Where does this tie into? Where does the city of Chambly's trail plan? What is this connecting to?
The plan is to go from Cotillion, which is that's right at the south end of the city, up to where we already have a short section of path near Peeler Road on North Shallowford. We would tie into that and then extend it all the way down to Cotillion.
Okay, but as far as our connecting to our neighbors, do we know what's happening in the city of Chambly? Who are we connecting to besides, I guess, just Shallowford itself?
We know if GDOT builds their managed lane project and rebuilds the Chamblee-Dunwoody Bridge will connect to Chamblee there. There's been some discussions about GDOT accommodating either at North Saliford or North Peachtree or both, a connection under 285 at one of those locations, but I don't think that's been finally determined yet.
Right. Can I interrupt?
Yes.
Go right ahead.
So we've had discussions, the mayor of Chamblee and I have had discussions with the Georgia Department of Transportation about the what ifs as it relates to the managed lanes to get people across, or under 285. And we had some assurances. I wouldn't say they were strong assurances, but they weren't really weak assurances that they will work with us. Like Michael said, either or both North Peachtree and North Shallowford. I don't know if you, John, or everyone on council is aware that Chamblee has master planned inside the perimeter from I want to be careful, but like where the burnt out restaurant is, that area to be very high density, with lots of points of connectivity towards Dunwoody, and then of course inward towards Chamblee and Brookhaven. So, and I believe that soon we'll have a master plan of all the top end trails. If I'm not mistaken, I missed a meeting the other day, but Michael,
I thought I remember a plan for along the waterway inside the perimeter in Chamblee, like along the creek, that there would be a path, and I was trying to figure out where we were connecting to that.
yes. And there is a master planning process going on with all the cities of how we're connecting.
Okay.
I can tell you.
Final question for me, if I could, just, I know this is initial planning. Tell me about stormwater, Michael. What is the stormwater needs on Shallowford as far as planning for future aspects? And is this project impacting that at all?
We will have to look at the stormwater. That'll be part of the design. I'm not recalling any real issues we have with runoff on Shallowford, but North Shallowford, but we will have to look at that and address it. We have a lot of existing pavement out there, so there's probably an opportunity to utilize some of that so that we're not really increasing the impervious much, if at all, if we use some of the existing roadway to build some of this. The other thing I'd say about the connectivity is this, GDOT has committed as part of their top end project to put a path along Cotillion. And so this would connect to that on our side.
Great. No other questions for me. Thank you.
Mayor Deutsch, any other questions or comments?
I'm fine.
Yeah, and the only other thing I'll add, of course, this is far from final or anything, but as part of the top end managed lanes, a potential BRT location is in that area, which would be well served by having additional connectivity to it. So, but again, that's far from sealed and delivered, but something that has been proposed.
And that's a really good point. And if I remember correctly, plan in Chamblee is very transit oriented, and they don't envision much parking. So they envision connecting in, and the Georgetown shopping area would be, depending on what they've developed there, would be the closest shopping area.
Okay, thank you, Michael. You're up again.
Michelle's going to take.
Oh, Michelle. Okay. Michelle, you're on.
And now they saved the best for last. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm here to present on the Winners Chapel Road Phase 2 project. It's the PATH project. This will construct a multi-use path from Chaumont Place to Peeler Road, which is a continuation of the Winners Chapel Phase 1 path. The project was originally identified in the Winners Chapel Road area study that was adopted by Dunwoody and Peachtree Corners in 2015. It was also identified in the Dunwoody Master Trail Plan adopted last year. Based on the project limits, we will have an IGA with Peachtree Corners. It is currently in review with Peachtree Corners. The project is locally funded for PE and right-of-way and has federal funds in construction. The project was advertised a request for qualifications and received 7 responses. The 3 highest firms were asked to submit a technical proposal, and Practical Design Partners was selected as the most qualified. Their design fee for concept is $385,907 and will include traffic, environmental resources, identification, which will include archaeology, cemetery, GPR, history, and ecology. It will also include utility survey, public involvement, and an approved concept report and layout. So if you have any questions, I'm here to answer. It's kind of similar to the other federal project where, since there are federal dollars, it'll have to go through the whole GDOT process.
Okay, questions from council, comments? Anyone? Councilman Hennigan, any questions or comments?
Sure, I'll jump in. Greetings, Michelle. I'm not sure you've been in front of council before. If you have, maybe I missed it, but great to see you. I want to meet you someday personally.
First time, so.
Oh, there you go. Congratulations. Welcome.
Thank you.
Tell me about the lighting. Again, we are still putting forward a plan for 12-foot sidewalks, 12-foot path only. Is that correct?
It will be a 12-foot multi-use path with a 5-foot buffer, a grass buffer.
As far as lighting, tell me about the lighting that's going to also be in that aspect.
So they will do a lighting plan based off of spacing, and it'll be like a photometric layout that will be done. And we'll either look at putting it in the buffer or outside the back of the trail.
Okay. Yeah, I have no questions. I think you all know that I'm sort of against the 12-foot sidewalks or 12-foot paths in front of single-family residential that this entails. So I have no other questions. Thank you.
Mayor Deutsch, any questions or comments?
Not at this time, thank you. It's all good.
Okay, I have a okay, Stacy, go ahead.
I just we had several emails from citizens saying that, please approve it and let's do it tomorrow. So I thank you to the citizens, and
Yeah, I've got just a few comments, not necessarily maybe some questions, but yeah, to Stacy's point, we have gotten messages in support of this. I've spoken to several residents in the area that are very eager to see a continuation of what we started. Because as of right now, some people are referring to that as the path to nowhere. And obviously that was not the intent. It was just the first phase of getting to somewhere. But with that in mind, I know there, as Michael has already mentioned, when we're dealing with federal money and federal projects, there's a lot more hoops to jump through, a lot more qualifications, and that tends to slow it down. But anything that we can do to accelerate this project would be greatly appreciated. I also think for this particular project, the majority of it is along commercial property. I believe there's only 3 individual homes, and one of those is a side yard on the corner of Charmont. The other 2 are, those homes are pretty. I think they're elevated and a little bit further back from the road, so the impact to those residents should be minimal. And then the rest of it is all commercial property, with the majority of it being along a cemetery. So there's going to be minimal impact to residents, but with a huge upside benefit with connecting those people to a major commercial area down the street, and also with the Peeler Road project connecting to a city park as well. One thing I don't know if this is included, because I remember looking at the original concept plans from 2015. That was a long time ago, and there were calls for like tiny pocket parks and this and that. But a few months ago, I had a meeting with some Lockridge Forest. I attended their annual meeting, their neighborhood association, and they had some questions about this project. They were excited to see it continue and go past. They did have questions about where Sumac comes into Winters Chapel. That intersection currently is not signalized, does not have a traffic light. They have safety concerns about that. Winters Chapel, there's a tendency not to obey the speed limit along that road. There's a lot of fast traffic along that road. Some of that is by design because it's a wide road. There's a lot of extra shoulder space there. I think tends to encourage a little bit faster driving. So hopefully, as part of this project, we can narrow that and encourage slower speeds. My reason for bringing this all up is that if there is something that we could do at that particular intersection to provide accessibility to that neighborhood, to the trail, in the way of, I don't know if it's appropriate to signalize, that particular intersection, but at the very least, have a significant pedestrian crossing there to allow access from that neighborhood to the trail, which would be on the opposite side of the road from that neighborhood, Lockridge Forest. I know there was a lot of interest from the neighborhood being able to safely access that trail. So if we can include that in the design, that would be appreciated.
Yes, we will look into that. And as part of that, there are like counts that will be done of pedestrian counts and traffic counts to see that warrants are met, if there's a signal or else some type of pedestrian crossing.
Okay. I don't see any further questions or comments. So thank you, Michelle.
Thank you.
Okay, we are to public comments. I do have one public comment card for Mr. Diamante, but I do not see that he is still here. Are there any other public comments? Seeing none, city manager comments.
No further comments. We do not need an executive session tonight.
City council comments.
Save the date for May 9th. Bike ride to lunch with Dunwoody City Council coming up in May. All right. We'll stay tuned to be published further details. Bike to lunch, May 9th.
Okay, Councilman Hagan, Mayor Deutsch, any comments?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom, for taking over.
You good? Okay.
I'm good.
All right.
Move to adjourn.
Moved by Stacy.
Second.
Second by Joe. All in favor, say aye.
All right.
Aye. Meeting stands adjourned. Thank you, everybody.